welcome everybody to the session Facts, Data, and the 21st Century, a Social Cybernetics Approach. I'm going to be the chair of this session. I'm Roberto. And we have, oh, hi Patricia. We have on this great session, we have Luciano Gallon, Czeslaw Mesak. How do you pronounce it, Czeslaw? I've always wanted to know.
Mesias, like Czeslaw is like
Mesias.
Yes,
and Stefano Walter. So, let's see. You guys, Czeslaw is presenting his paper, Complexity and Chaos. Production system, social impacts and modification. And Luciano Gallon is presenting an introduction for social cybernetics approach to things, the facts of the 21st century. And then the way we're going to go about this is we're going to have 25 minutes per speaker and then 5 minutes for questions and answers. Okay, so if nobody has any problem, we go with you first, Czeslaw. Yes. The floor is yours.
But please let me do, because the others are sharing. Okay, good. So may I share the screen right now? Okay, good. So yeah. Now it was busy, it was occupied. Okay, good. Can you see my screen?
Yeah.
Okay, good. So good evening or good afternoon, whatever. I'm very glad to have a chance to present my paper in my favorite research committee of the International Sociological Association. And what I have to add more maybe during the presentation. I'm right now involved in several projects going to the roots of its complexity, complex systems, and so I have elaborated a new methodology which I'm going to publish and to present. Pieces of the methodology were presented at our committee, at the meetings of our committee. For instance, something about the fake news and ignorance and so on and so on. It will be put together in a series of papers and in in a book. Right now I finished a book on Agile and Complexity, and these are some of my impressions about the Agile and Complexity, about applications of Agile and Complexity in project management, because my main institutional assignment is the curriculum of economics, business management, but I'm a kind of, let's say, not freelancer, but a kind of intellectual Don Quixote, you know, that I'm going in my own ways. Don't worry, I count the time. Roberto, you will not have to fight with me. That's it, and then I will continue. No, I just for explanation, because I think that all that could help our research committee in the future. Okay, good. So, complexity and chaos as persuasive and performative metaphors in social science. What's that? Oh, this is something about the sponsoring, although this somehow like, but they like it. My point is then when we study systems, or should it be any kind of systems or complexity, as you know, we could talk for hours what is complexity, what isn't. We easily discover this is nothing surprising and nothing non-evident. We have three basic tools: the mathematical models, analogies, and metaphors. Of course, we may have other linguistic structures, simile, similus, and so on and so on, but I focus here on this. So, but basically, when we look at the studies of complex systems, I focus on complex system, complexity and chaos, but we can also look at other concepts. So they dominate the discourse. of course, when we know that we have plenty of definitions of complexity, plenty of definitions of, etc. Of cows, we have less definitions of cows and so on. But I'm looking at this from a very specific point of view, not only as metaphors, but as an instrument of communication. Instrument of communication, and not only. Let's go further. This is my, or let's say, indigenous proposal, and it will be a part of my publications, that two ironic laws of epistemology and methodology of social cybernetics, complexity science, econophysics, and so on. The first law, here I put the copyright on this, just let's say, slightly humoristically, but to some extent. The first law: any model of collective phenomena treated as complicated or complex, drawn from physics, chemistry, and biology, can be studied in define the social systems after assuming some boundary conditions concerning the systems, the elements, and the interactions. Because of my background, I have very close contacts with the quantitative complexity studies, both institutions, NEXI, New England Complex Systems Institute. They had a very good conference last year, of course, already via internet, and also with the community, which is called Complex Systems Society. They had a meeting in summer in internet. I was ridiculed when some of the reviewers, I presented a kind of survey paper, and one reviewer, probably young mathematician or physicist, wrote me that this is not quantitative, there is not any computation, so it is not about complexity. You know, I am too old to worry about that, but I had a lot of fun. Because what they do sometimes, those quantitative people, they make such strong preliminary assumptions that they are completely irrelevant to social systems, but then they stay as, you look at, they impress the others, you know, they impose their wisdom. Of course, I don't criticize them at all. On the other hand, those who use the spoken line, I mean, the narratives, talk about metaphors, age of cows, and so on, not knowing what they are talking about. So we have a lot of fun, you know, in a way, to listen to people who talk something that they don't know precisely what they are talking about. So this is, for me, it's just, I'm not cynic. On contrary, I appreciate it and so on, but we have to go to the roots. And this is an example of going to the roots. So here, the mathematicians, the econophysicists, and the others would go like that. Any model, for instance, Ising model, networks, whatever. Of course, networks are more productive. But we use it. We take some very strong binary conditions, you know, and then it works. This is society that I'm asking. Always I'm asking, what is the phenomenology standing behind that? Except that mathematics. There is also a problem, because sometimes this is a very low-level mathematics behind those, let's say, social system specialists. Not only, but they impress. That's another story. My second law is similar. Ironic, that copyright for this. Any model of collective phenomena drawn from physics and so on can be used as a source of metaphors, analogies and metaphors to study social systems. So you can see that they are somehow dialectically connected, not dialectically, but paradoxically connected. I didn't think precise how to mix them precisely. The second law. Okay. What is another problem? That the analogies and metaphors taken from complexity studies, whatever we may call it. I have a problem with defining complexity science, by the way, but I'm also preparing a new typology for complex systems, for the interpretation of complexity to be published. Yeah. And then, so if somebody says about complexity, about cows and so on, so it adds an extra value. In management, we have such a situation when there is an author, Robert Stacy, who once proposed a model of complexity and chaos, who denied later that model, who said that is not relevant. But now the community of project management and the community of management are still repeating this. So there is a funny situation in a way. that the author says this is not right, but the followers say, no, we think that this is the kind of autoschismatic, fantastic story. Okay, so they get a special scientific value. Now we have a simple scheme of metaphor, source field, and target field. What is new right now, and especially important for social cybernetics, for second-order cybernetics. If you have time, please come, or if you have time, please come to my next presentation in an hour or so, because I'm not developing more on that, but something parallel, showing the depth, the profoundness of the necessary depth of serious studies about complex systems and so forth. What we have now, that this process of creating metaphor now is, we know that it is much more complex. We have to consider the observer. There's another story. We may find different types of metaphors. Of course, I could talk for hours. That's all, as each of us, because we know our business. But I'm only presenting some synthetic issues in a very synthetic way. Typology of metaphors: conceptual, deliberate, live, dead, mixed, complex. They are not ordered. But then something more interesting. We have two concepts of utterances: performative utterance, the act of speech. You know, if I say something, I proclaim you that you are doctor, and the dean says this officially, then the committee votes, or the council votes, and we are becoming, you are a married couple. It's a performative act. Then persuasive metaphors, persuasive expressions. I want to change the perception and behavior of the addressee. I'm telling you this, that, and so on and so forth. This is deeply studied in social science. So I have two cases, presented in a very superficial way, but if time allows, and I think that there will be publications on that. So I even to my chief editor, Mr. Chaime, that if time allows, since the next part of the year, we could talk seriously about this. Now I'm too busy. Simple case studies of working from those 2 points of view at those two utterances. Complexity, we know. There are so many definitions. This is unclear whether it is quantitative, computable complexity, whether it is qualitative, referring to our colleague from Germany, maybe this complexity by Niklas Luhmann, and so on and so forth. So there are plenty of definitions of complexity. I like very much, by the way, I like very much Niklas Luhmann. That's another story, but he's more qualitative. So multiple definitions. Then the metaphors of complexity have multiple characteristics, that famous nonlinearity, self-organization, emergence, and so on. I could multiply the cases. The funny story with nonlinearity is that usually those who don't know mathematics, they expose it. Look, this is nonlinear. But you know, linearity is a special case of the situation. It's a special case of mathematical modeling. It's a special case of the physical phenomena. Of course, sometimes we have funny situations. The Newton equations are linear, but it's just another story. So the rediscovery of non-linearity was well known, and people were aware since the beginning of the complex system. But nonetheless, forget it. Multiple characteristics of that complexity. And now look at very primarily when we look at those metaphors. Performative character. I could study it much deeper. It will require a more profound hermeneutic studies and so on, maybe say text and analysis and so on. This is complex. I'm telling you, this is complex. I don't know to what extent the receiver of this communication, of this information, this message, what extent he or she knows what is complexity, but I make that I can distinguish this. This is complex. I could elaborate more on that, but he or she creates complexity of that object. We could go much, much deeper, but look at it. Then, because we have limited time and we have plenty of things to write about, Then persuasive. It's especially visible in consulting and in training, in business management. Once, somewhere, there was a situation, there were the necktiers, the business people. I have time, I control the time, don't worry, I'll finish in a few minutes. And I was invited there as a, oh, doesn't matter where, and in a country in the western part of the continent, better developed than Poland, than my beautiful Poland, but nonetheless. And then those neckties, the business people then had a presenter, complexity of management. That guy were provoking them, you know, that jeans, tennis shoes, you know, dirty t-shirt, and you know, then Michel Jarre music, you know, and the pulsating networks, you know, and start to say, and I was thinking, dear friend, you are not lucky today, because you have somewhere in the audience who truly knows about it, speaking quite modestly, but truly knows what it's about. Then I approached him. I didn't ask because of the politeness towards the hosts. I didn't ask him. Then I asked the gentleman. He was not cheater. He was not totally cheater, but of course he didn't know too much, didn't understand too many things what we were talking about, what he was talking about. I asked him, sir, incidentally I know that, and he was sincere. He was honest. He said, you know, I'm enriching their language. Fine. So I did. It was not so critical. So in this case, that those trainers, consultants, and sometimes the management people want to persuade the people. Now I cooperate with the team. You studying quantitative mechanics and social science, and I take it seriously because maybe Mr. Walker doesn't know, but I'm not an active physicist, but I have top-level physicists around me, and I exercise a little bit of econophysics, so I know. So that's the same story. So in this case, the persuasion that I understand better, I'm your savior. This is even better visible with that famous cows on the edge of cows. The funny story is with that the name of that model was chosen completely arbitrarily. If somebody reads the book by Gleich, the story is described in detail that they were when asked, why are you calling it chaos? It was not Lorentz. Lorentz couldn't sell his equation until he elaborated that famous metaphor of the butterfly. Earlier, it was just neglected, you know, but now butterfly, you know, so on and so forth. Now we have that black swan, you know, and others. By the way, I once at the Mexico conference, I just asked Mr. Taleb, do you have a black swan in your bag? That was a funny story. Of course, it's absolute serious. It's very well. I don't criticize, but just to have fun for that nicely sounding metaphor, cows. So the name, the name of the mathematical model is completely arbitrary. Completely arbitrary. There are two sources, although three, as a matter of fact. It's that and then the second model. It's that's the Lorentz, but it's Lorentz not so exposed in this, and the edge of cows is Langton, arbitrarily chosen name for a class of equation. And then Kaufman. I know to the roots. So, but cows. Now, what do we think that in this case, the metaphors are decoupled from their source fields. They are living their own life. The linguists say, okay, but that metaphors are also useful because if a metaphor is decoupled from its source area, source domain, so is that. But it's useful. So what we have with the cows? I will finish, Mr. Chairman, Mr. Chairperson, Mr. Chairman, yes. When we look at this performative character, what is coming to the fore? The emotional aspects of cows. If you take a Cunefin model, the Cunefin model elaborated by Snowden, but also by the others. So it's very common in management, in project management, but they have resigned from reference to the mathematical models. On the contrary, they expose it that we are not thinking about the mathematical models of cows, if you know what Cunefin, if you recall the Cunefin model. So in this case, what is fascinating for me, it would require deep linguistic studies, for which I have no time for so far. To what extent is the use of cows is emotionally laden? Look, I'm a specialist. So if it's a draft, my concept. Then it's persuasive. Look, there is chaos. I will help you. I'm a consultant, I'm a trainer. If you pay me for my service of consulting and training, I will help you to get out from that chaos, or to leave the edge of chaos peacefully, and maybe to be more innovative, to develop new solutions. This is fantastic in a way, but this is working. So, as I've said, these are my first. This is an introduction to longer tags and longer, a deeper and broader research. The chaos has also decided that the authors want to first see the authors want to persuade the audience. Look, I know better about cows, about the big cows. Then more, look, I'm a specialist, what I've already mentioned. I can help you in dealing with cows. So what are my conclusions? Applications of analogies and metaphors, especially complex, about those emotionally laden like cows and at the edge of cows. Firstly, if they are treated as metaphor in intellectual terms, they enhance the intellectual weight of the arguments. And they also had this emotional leadening, the emotional value that, look, we can help you. We can then we can conduct very deep studies of the influence of subconsciousness, whatever. And so this is a very interesting area of research. So thank you for your attention. And since we are in sleepers in Brazil, so correctly, I say not obrigada, but corrected, obrigado. Thank you very much. Thank you for your attention. Okay, so Mr. Chairman, that's all on my part.
Roberto, it looks like Roberto
have some
has
problem with
technical issue. And Czesław,
yes?
I will ask you a question, but first, thank you for your presentation. Again, a very important presentation on thinking as a cyberneticians, the way the things are developing. I hope with my presentation to give more examples of your ideas. And my question is about the consequences of the issue, because okay, people use metaphors and use theories and concepts that they do not understand or have studied, but when you are studying management cases, what you see are what are the consequences on the performance of the organizations?
Thank you very much. This is fascinating. There was a gentleman. There is maybe I don't know who Mr. Secretan. I met him once just during one of the discussions, one of those complexity conferences. Who consulted the companies using the metaphor of bicycle. That, for instance, a 2-day training course, how to run a company, and the full analogies, discussion, equilibrium, stability, and so on and so forth. At the first glance, I thought it's a kind of, I would save my term, so I wouldn't use any stronger terms. It was not so correct. Let me put it in a diplomatic sense. But then when I started to think deeper, my conclusion was different. As long as these gentlemen or these people will do it in a honest way, that they think, that they persuade people, they enrich their language. So in this case, it has a heuristic value. You know, that it may have equilibrium, so extending, using the linguistic terms, enriching the language. And you know what happened in management, in project management especially, that there was a coincidence. The emergence, or the birth of Agile, mid-90s, regulated Agile started in 2001 after the manifesto. Now I know quite a lot about this because, as I've said, that I'm writing a book on this, finishing a book on that. But earlier there was this new language. Some of those people understood it to a certain, to a deep, more profound, and so on and so forth. So unless it is a very important ethical problem. Unless we don't see that somebody is cynically cheating or somebody is completely ignorant about complexity and saying this, then we may even have a kind of ethical duty, either to write or to tell them. But if they are honest and then they treat it as the kind of extension of the language, an extension of understanding, adaptation, complexity, we are going into another world. So the systems thinking, also social cybernetics was already there also, but social cybernetics was overwhelmed. But those mathematicians, those physicists were simply politically stronger in the academia that they proposed. Okay, so that's all, my part.
Okay, thank you. Roberto, you have your mic mute.
All
right.
Can you hear me? Yeah. So sorry, I got kicked out because of my internet. So you had 5 minutes 5 minutes ago. I was going to propose that we stick to the end for the questions and answers, but how about we go to Stefan and then to you, Luciano. It's the same. I will send you a private message when you're half and 5 minutes ago. Okay, so the floor is yours, Stefan.
Okay, thank you. Right, I think you can probably see it. I think so. Yes, does it build up?
Yes.
Is it there? Okay, thank you very much. Good.
Yes. But
right.
we have your PowerPoint open with all the controls. I'm not seeing the presentation screen exactly.
That means I should do what?
Enlarge the screen because you have the.
Yeah, you put the screen.
Or share the presentation screen, not the PowerPoint screen.
Yeah.
The presentation screen.
Go into presentation mode,
Yes, that's true. I'm in this. How do I do that?
You have the sign on the. You can do it in several ways. Okay, we can also watch it later.
You have to stop.
There's a symbol close to in the right down corner of the screen. Close to this.
But you first have to stop sharing and then choose the screen of the presentation.
But we can see it if there are technical problems.
It's okay.
So no
yeah, well, no, I thought I have two screens here. I don't know if this is the issue.
Just go about it because we're gonna lose more time.
Yeah.
Trying to make it prettier.
Well,
press F5.
F5, yes. I press it here. That's the same as before. I don't know if you can see.
Yeah, well, look, just go about it.
Well, then I leave. But can you see this screen here?
Yes.
Okay. Well, let's put it like this, and no. Well, I leave it like this. You can see that anyway. Okay.
Yeah.
Good. So, right. Yes. So this presentation is, let's say, it is a lot more applied than what we have heard before. I think that's because we at VTT, we are not actually, we are not a university. We are an applied science organization, and I particularly, I'm concerned, this was just a bit to give you an idea of what we actually do. We have different business areas. One where I'm active, that is called sustainable products and materials. And within that, we have a research area called cognitive production industry. And within that, again, it's there's a research team called intelligent supply chains and logistics. This is where I'm active, and our, let's say, our goal is to focus on revitalization of industry, of manufacturing in particular. So this is where I basically come from, also in the context of this presentation. So I basically start by explaining what what this is actually about. So it's about agile cognitive production systems. And what's cognitive production in the first place? That's about aiming to transform production. It's about connected sensors. It's about be able to analyze a wide variety of information from different contexts. It's about combining different sorts of data from a large variety of sources, etc., and make use of that. Basically, the way we translate this is we create a learning organization. Now that might sound trivial, but we have a specific technology focus on that. So this isn't only about people, it's also about machines. And here this is showing a bit more what we are focusing on when we mean we focusing on agile factories or on agile cognitive factories. We mean here that we have a real-time data processing going on. We have networks of different actors. We have maybe artificial intelligence, and we anyway don't have only humans making decisions. We also have machines involved and machines cooperating with humans, and this creates a very different kind of complex setting. Yes.
Sorry, Stefan.
Yes.
We are still at the first page of your presentation. You're not sharing the PowerPoint presentation, and we are still in the first.
Okay, I thought I didn't realize this at all. I thought we would be sharing it.
Now we're at the one.
Okay. So this is where I actually was. Sorry for the confusion. Yeah, you anyway have been able to follow what I said, I hope. And there's also a bigger picture to it, you know, considering maybe the themes of this conference as well. We are actually also really concerned about people and planet, you know, social issues, environmental issues, even though our primary focus is on economic sustainability and making companies more competitive and performing better. And this word agile here, I don't know if this is the same what Czeslaw would have meant before with agile, but we mean here that we build production systems that can, for example, respond rapidly to different demands, different market demands. They can produce things on a more individual, personalized basis, or maybe you can see it also in a risk management context. If you consider that agile production is more resilient to changes. And then my particular focus is on supply chain issues. That would be quite a generic supply chain where you have different stages of production, from raw material supplier to end consumer, all sorts of different stages. And basically this is the result of production that is being distributed among different companies. And usually nowadays this is something very global. And we also tend to speak of value chains because a lot of value that is being created actually is through such supply chains. And the more nodes and arcs that are here connected through communication you have, the more complex this is probably becoming. At least that's my understanding of complexity. That is maybe slightly more, let's say, maybe it's a bit different, or maybe it's the same. So the research directions I'm doing here, or I'm making, that is first, it's about standardization and communication. And I'm wondering simply about impacts, transformations that this might have. The second is on artificial intelligence. And I'm wondering, for example, if using more and more machines that are supposed to be autonomous, if we actually can speak here of cognitive systems in that cybernetic sense or not. I also need to say that this is all still ongoing. I don't really give many answers. I'm thinking I'm probably asking more questions than give answers, but that's something too. So a couple of slides on theoretical background that I consider relevant here. This is maybe a classic that everyone, I think, probably has read somewhere, that living systems are actually cognitive systems, and that living as a process is a process of cognition. Just to know that where do we actually find this word cognition that I'm mentioning in agile cognitive systems. So and then living systems produce themselves. That's called autopoiesis. That's something that particularly Luhmann has utilized for the social sphere, and where I also have been using a lot in past research. And also important is that autopoietic systems that are cognitive systems and that are able to distinguish themselves from the environment are actually operatively closed. So they are open in energetic terms, but then in terms of their reproductive operations, they're actually closed. And this has consequences because systems that actually distinguish themselves and create an own identity basically also create certain kind of incompatibilities. Not that they wouldn't influence each other, but they are not right away compatible, or not compatible at all, fundamentally speaking. And when we speak of how to standardize, or how to think of standardized communication or interoperability questions, then this incompatibility might be a relevant issue. Also, another point is that given that I have this technical context and this engineering context, there tends to be a thinking that that is very much influenced by Shannon's information theory, and that information can simply be sent just like that, and that information is universally always the same everywhere. But then the idea of cybernetics is that information does not simply exist outside a system, but it's actually only something that is relevant within a certain context, and that means within that system. So it doesn't exist per se, or not sui generis. So just talking a bit of standardization. So that's first an interoperability issue. And I mentioned Shannon here, signal transmission and reception. And the problem here is very plain, actually. It's about semantics and syntactics. And then when you have a bit of an IT background, you know that you could connect a machine to a machine and have them cooperate with each other, or kind of exchange, communicate, so to speak. But that's of course not feasible when you have maybe millions or billions of devices as connected on the internet. You may have industry standards, you may have open standards. And so you try to kind of generalize here and create something that helps to overcome these interoperability challenges. Then we have literally roadmaps and that help us to pursue the interoperability issue. And there's organizations like this Standardization Council in the context of Industry 4.0 and other organizations that really are interested in creating some sort of frameworks that allow us to get closer to this goal of creating common standards. There's one example here on the right page, on the right-hand side. It's a reference architecture model, and you see lots of different layers, hierarchy levels that might be affected. You have business levels, functional levels, communication, or you have all along any kind of that value stream that I mentioned before. So you have actually a very complex setting, and you want it's really extremely challenging to actually create interoperability throughout this. This is a massive challenge, in fact, and that's why we have these organizations in the first place. Then that's an example I wanted to mention. Asset administration shell. It's basically a way of digitalizing physical assets, physical entities in companies. And I'm mentioning it because it's about administration, it's about organizations, and one could suggest that using it as an example, that this may have profound implications on organizations when we increase the level of digitalization in companies. So for example, you know, I wonder what consequences this has. I mean, what I wrote now here, these issues on behavioral patterns, on adapting systems or social interactions. This might be quite, let's say, self-evident, and maybe the best example is social media. But maybe it's probably similar in industrial settings, but I don't know exactly, and I'm just wondering about it. So this is an open question to me. It's not my main focus, but I'm trying to make myself sensitive for getting an impression of how it might be through my research, through my ongoing research. Then something on AI, artificial intelligence. And we are also very much active on this. I'm shortly presenting this year. This is a project that has recently started, Knowledge Project. And it's particularly about trying to create agile factory through artificial intelligence algorithms that make processes more efficient, more optimal, better than if only humans were present. But it's particularly interesting to note that it focuses on explainable artificial intelligence. That means we would like to create more examples and use cases which help to explain artificial intelligence results. So it's not only wanting to introduce AI somewhere and then you know, accepting that it's kind of a black box and not knowing exactly what's happening in there. But the point is really to make the operations visible so that humans can interfere and say, yes, this is a good thing, this is a good result, we want that. And then we sort of acknowledge it. And in the bottom right here, you see the fields of science that are affected by it. So it's really not only computer science, but it is deliberately also a sociological, or broadly speaking, social science research project. Bit more theory still. Maybe this is also pretty self-evident, but not everyone understands it this way, that communication is actually about, or has these three elements: information, utterance, and understanding. And anyway, that the listener decides on the meaning of the message. And in the context of AI, this becomes very relevant. And I wasn't quite sure how to proceed here and how to theorize this. So I used this idea of structural coupling of psychic or mental and social systems, so of thought processes and communication. And that coupling is enabled through language. And that means communication is actually that which overcomes the problem that our minds cannot actually read each other, yes, read other minds. So we have to communicate in order to overcome this kind of dark spot, so to speak. And with computers, there is some research, but maybe there isn't a huge amount of research. And there's maybe only tentative research. There is not everything is always finalized fully. And what I know is that computers could be seen as an attempt to overcome distance between psychic system and these unknowns between our minds. And someone, Bronzini here, considers that we should speak of computers as medium of communication, and not communication with a computer when we think of AI, but computer-mediated communication. And we should be interested in how the computer binds itself to intelligence as understood in a social sense. But it's still not quite obvious to me. Now, you saw this picture from before. I had the supply chain picture, and I was wondering, so I deliberately made these connections now with a more dotted line. Don't know if you can see that, but it's meant to be a dotted line. And now I'm wondering, can there be an AI-controlled autonomous supply chain? Because that would be one goal that we would actually like to develop. What I know is that it's not communication in the social sense that is actually happening between. And I said before that a supply chain is actually a communication network. So is it just a black box for us? Or is it maybe nothing at all? Because if it was purely automatized, autonomous, then would we realize it is actually there? You know. So these are kind of open questions for me. And so some concluding remarks. What are exactly requirements to make interoperability work? How does this shape the way humans think? How does it affect humans and their communication and their knowledge bases, maybe? Yes, and if machines do not actually communicate and merely process information, perhaps, then it would mean that we are not actually creating cognitive production systems using AI. So that would mean that it could only be in context of human involvement, and that it wouldn't be entirely autonomous. And that maybe the practical focus in AI research is actually on human support. So that fits actually to that research project that I mentioned, which is also exactly doing that actually. Yes, I think I was probably quite good in time. I hope so at least. So that is my presentation. Thank you. And I hope you were able to follow anyway.
Thank you very much, Stefan. You are actually 6 minutes.
Okay.
Before time, so
good.
How about we go with Luciano, so then we can have all that time for questions and answers. This is all very interesting. Thank you very much, Luciano.
All right.
The floor is yours.
Okay, so I will be sharing my screen, and my screen is here, and I will be having the chat over my screen because I need to see what I'm saying. Okay. Thank you for being here. You organized this session to be held in last year, but now we're on the virtual forum and we're happy to be here. And thank you for the work of Patricia, Raiha, and Martina on setting up all this presentation that we are having at the RC51. So here is my presentation, and I will be sharing with you the idea of a kind of introduction for a socio-cybernetics approach to trying to think on facts of the 21st century. So I'm talking to you from Medellin in Colombia, and I'm happy to be here, really. So I only have 3 points. I will be trying to do
Excuse me, could you set, Luciano, could you set a different pattern of presentation, because you have just the controlling view, not the main view? Because we see two
sorry.
screens.
Okay, I will be fixing
Okay,
that.
but we can see it. Okay, so continue. Sorry, because we see the working screen for the teacher, not for the audience.
This one?
Let me see
It's
that.
okay?
Oh yes, yes, that's good.
Okay.
Thank you. Sorry, I'm
Okay. Okay, no problem. So I will be talking about 3 points: introduction. I will talking with this question: are you sure how the world problems are behaving, and the discussion? Okay. And first, I will be starting with these 9 possibilities between what I think, what I mean, what I think I said, what I say, what you want to hear, what you hear, what you think you understand, what you want to understand, and what you understand. There are 9 possibilities of not understanding each other. I started with this because of the situation that I want to share with you. So let's talk about the basics in this introduction. I use the dictionaries from the English and the Espanol. So the first one is see, ver. The second one is watch, mirar en español, watch in English. The third one is observe, observar en español, observe in English. So with those definitions, we can say that to see, para ver, you need the eyes and the brain. Necesitas los ojos y el cerebro. To watch, para mirar, you need to decide and focus what to see. Necesitas decidir y focalizar qué ver. To observe, para observar, you need to watch from knowledge. Necesitas mirar desde el conocimiento. So I used a text from Geyer. He wrote that in 1995. It was published at Cybernetics, and the title is "The Challenge of Social Cybernetics." This is the content of the paper, and I core concepts of second order cybernetics, socio-cybernetics, self-reference, and also in the conclusion of the article where Geyer left us a question of a bridge too far for second order cybernetics. About self-reference, Geyer says a typical human beings at this individual or group level or scale, it has 3 meanings. There are 3 meanings of self-reference. The biological meaning and the stronger meaning that Geyers points out to be the second order cybernetics meaning. In this meaning, he says, this is where the system, whether an individual or a social system, collects information about its own functioning, which in turn can influence that functioning. And the minimal requirements to that happen are self-observation, self-reflection, and some degree of freedom and action. So in this introduction, we're talking about the main concepts that socio-cybernetics can help us to understand the world and the facts of the 21st century. Also in Geyer, we have one of the main characteristics of social system and about the self-referentiality, and in that a stronger meaning. The knowledge accumulated by the system about itself in turn affects both the structure and the operation of that systems. With feedback loops, you need feedback loops that exist between parts. In the external reality in one hand, and models and theory about this part in the reality in the other hand. So for social scientists, the consequence of self-referentiality are very interesting, and those are words of Geyer. Not only for gaining an insight on the function of social systems, that is a very interesting point in that situation, but also in the methodology and epistemology used to study them. So it points and it signals a paradox, because in studying the society and based on knowledge, we also change the validity of that knowledge. So with that in mind, we can go to the next step in this introduction. And it came from Appleby in a conference he gave at Vienna in 2013, where with other things in mind, he also defined first and second order cybernetics. And this is for reference. In von Foster, this is first order, this is second order. PASC, the purpose of a model, the modeler. In Varela, control systems, autonomous systems. And also Appleby gave us two more distinctions. Interaction among the variables in a system is first order and second order between observer and observed. And also, we produce theories of social systems with first order cybernetics and with second order cybernetics theories about the interaction between ideas and society. So this is mine, and I've been showing this in some of my presentation. I think I remember I presented this to you in maybe in Urbino and then in Gothenburg conference. And it's a way to understand data as a way of base to do things. This is an arrow of time of discovery breadth. How much do you have to discover, or how much do you discover? And in this other dimension, you have here the low discovery breadth, and then the high discovery breadth. And then you have the differentiation in a context. Data has a low differentiation in a context. And if you go up in this dimension, you go to the high differentiation in that context. So if you discover or see or understand relationship between data, you go up one step and you get information. Then if you can figure out patterns in that information and data and relationships, you go to the next level, that is knowledge, and so on. After knowledge, you through principles, you got to the understanding, and through laws you go to wisdom, and going there up is for sure a good research question. Also, we need to try to understand and think on this issue: observation field and speed. This is a car, and the question is, what is the observation field of the people in that car, depending on the speed? And the study says that if you are going 4 kilometers by hour, you have a 100 degrees field of vision. And at the end, going at 130 kilometers per hour, you only have 30 degrees of field of vision. So that is why it's dangerous to go at those speed, because you cannot see what is happening in here or in here. So it also applies to the observer. If you are a speedy observer, you are looking only 30 degrees of field of vision in what is happening ahead. So at this point of the presentation, I want you to have an interactive conversation. So I will be showing questions to you, and I ask you to answer that question on the chat. Okay, are you ready? If you are ready, we can go to the next slide and have a question. So, question: what share of the world population don't have enough food to meet their daily needs? What do you think on that? Please write on the chat the answer to that questions. What do you think?
Somewhere in
It's
the
A.
middle, B perhaps.
Okay, you can put A, B, or C on the chat. Okay, we have quite few of time, so we need to go ahead. So it's A. Second question, 3. What happens to the global suicide rate in the last 20 years? What do you think? A, B, or C? Okay, it's A. 4. But it's the third question, but it is the 4. I will be explaining what is this. In low-income countries across the world, what share of girls went to school until at least at the age of 11 before the pandemic? A, B, or C? What do you think? Okay, it's C. Next question. How many people have access to safe drinking water in their home or close by? A, B, or C? Correct answer is C. Next question, and we'll finish the question. All of energy used in the world, how much of all the energy used in the world, how much comes from natural gas, coal, and oil? Around 41% A, around 61% B, around 81% C. What do you think? Put A, B, or C at the chat. Okay, right answer is C.
Again, hit.
And I think this is the last, not sure. In 1990, 88% of the world's population lived in low-income countries. What is the share today? A, B, or C? Okay, right answer is A, around 9%. And how much of the world's economy comes from agriculture, forestry, and fishing? 4%, 24%, 44%? Okay, 4%. And what share of all plastic waste in the world ends up in oceans? Less than 6%, around 36%, more than 36%. Please type your answer at the chat. 6%, less than 6%. Okay. There are roughly 8 billion people in the world today. Which map shows the best where they live? Each figure represents 1 billion people. So which map do you choose? A, B, or C? This figure represents 1 billion people. The right answer is B. 1 billion in the Americas, 1 billion in Africa, 1 billion in Europe, and 5 billion people in Asia and Oceania. Okay, so I think it's enough for questions. So this is based on free teaching material from Gapminder, and they have a systematic misconception projects in going on, and they ask around 1,000 people from Nordic countries and the UK. You can consult the report here. So now you're at the misconception study. You are an actor in that study. For sure, I ask you to go to the page and do the rest of the misconception study that is related to sustainable development goals. So the discussion. When you take a look at the report, you find that each of the question I ask you is related to one of the system development goals. And you will have here the goal, then the wrong answer in percentage in the study, which one is the systematic misconception. I will not stop here because of a lot of detail, but I will share that most of the people are wrong in the answer. So this is confusion. This is a serious problem in the world. The people think they live in another world, different than the real one, by the main indicators we're having of the state of the world. The best was the species are threatened, that is the 15 system development goals. And for example, the energy is a real problem, because if all of these people think that we are now outside of fossil fuels energy, they are not demanding that states and governments do the change and corporations do the change to the renewable energy. So it's very interesting why this is happening. And for the discussion, I also share with you this Ipsos global thruster with of peoples, and they rank who people trust most and who people untrust most. And this is the results for a 2019 study. Scientists, doctors, and teachers are the people most trust, and the most untrustworthy people, politicians, government, advertising executives. And just to start my conclusion from Geyer, also we have it that if one accepts Holland characteristic of being a complex adaptive system and realize that the social science indeed mainly studied those systems with all the core concepts, and is one is confronted with those concepts in sociology, economics, and other social science, Geyer asked us, what can we do to the people be aware of the reality of the things happening in the world? I'm applying Geyer ideas on this reflection. So recurring to the Scott paper of 2019, the socio-cybernetics of observation and reflexivity, explanation of self and the world is never complete. Okay. And citing past, there are a very interesting concept in conversations. In conversations, participants conceptualize each other and their perspectives to each other in a dance of reciprocity to try to explain their self or the world. And it's a protocol of, or it's a process of communication. So they teach the understanding back to each other, and they they may agree or disagree, but the question is how we can apply or use or depend on conversations concept to understand the real state of the world. And Scott also cites Margaret Archer, and I'm not sure if this quote is absolutely right now, because I think that, we have been some changes in the way the people are studying and working in different parts of the world. So if socio-cybernetics understandings of conceptualization and reflecting, we can what can we do? Maybe give ethical guidance on how to characterize, create, and sustain communities in which goodwill prevails. Make it possible to characterize pathological belief systems and pathological communities. And at the end, effective way of healing them. So if we want to reach system development goals, and the people are not understanding well the situation that those system development goals depends, we have a problem. So if people understand the state of the world, maybe it's possible to reach system development goals better. So just finishing my presentation, also from Guideminder, they have created this metaphor, maybe, Shazla, the dramatic attention filter. From all facts of the world, our attention filter selects the most dramatic ones. And the dramatic attention filter makes the world look more dramatic than it is. So this is my last page, and they have created this instincts and commandments, the gap instinct and the solution, maybe the solution. Negativity, straight line, fear instinct, single purposive instinct, and the last one is the urgency instinct. It's now or never. Maybe not. So thank you very much for your attention. That was my presentation.
This is such a dream session to chair. You guys were perfectly on time, or 5 minutes before that. So we are perfectly on time, like clockwork. We got 15 minutes for questions and answers. So I open the floor for anybody that has a question right now.
Who is the first? Usually there's a time gap. I don't want to be the first because I was a speaker.
Well,
sorry. Okay, we are wasting time, so maybe I will be the first. No, anyway. So referring to my predecessors, congratulations for the inspiring paper. Referring to Stefan Bata, as an experienced supervisor of PhD thesis, the main recommendation will be try to be more specific. is a very is something. This your approach is very good as as an initial research approach. But then you have to narrow, because the area is fantastic. It's very promising, but it has to be studied with more with a with more narrow perspective, because otherwise, no. But I'm always saying that every word matters. Every word matters. So, just a comment, just a kind of recommendation. But Luciano, coming to your paper, this is fantastic.
Roberto,
This,
sorry, Roberto, it's good you to mute your mic because we're hearing you and Chesla.
Okay, good. So very briefly, Luciano, it's fantastic because it's a kind of missing link for me, because my point, what is interesting with this, with those questions, I was wrong a couple of times, but then I realized that I'm more optimistic. For instance, that there is no physical famine in the world, and then using a different approach, just not be exposed to this daily propaganda of sustainability, forthcoming environmental crisis. By the way, I'm not against sustainability. I'm in favoring this, but in a reasonable way. So then I discovered the key. That's not just every be, but be more optimistic. Just we have to be more optimistic, because the world got, and my last point is that it helps me because I have a little different approach to this. Sati referred to the fake news, that we are now in the era of total social constructivism. Everybody can construct everything, so that's my point. And there are no elements which could be treated as objective, that they are constructed. And your example shows the impact of social constructivism in enlarging the truth, in enlarging the threats and distorting the reality. But then comes psychology, and what is missing in my research is a good understanding of individual psychology and social psychology, how people perceive this. But it's another story. Okay, here I stop.
We got a question from the chat room. It says, thank you, from Goran Matic. Thank you for an excellent presentation. Luciano, given your finding, what do you think might be some of the most relevant opportunities for applying social cybernetics more effectively in contemporary research, theory, and practice?
Okay. Also, thank you, Stefan, for your presentation. I was also impressed by the project itself, and also what Chesla was replying and was commenting. And given the Guram question, the first clarification is okay. It's not all my finding. You can find the book, the Factfulness, that was published by Gapmind Foundation, and they have in that book a good and broad explanation of each and every one, maybe mental model that is causing this. But your question is very good, and it takes my teacher practice, because one of the questions we as teacher has is how I change my next term course the way the students learn better and have a better understanding of their possibilities and their understanding. And in particular, teaching system dynamics, I have found that one of the key points that we can use and apply self-reflective, sex-reflection and conversation is that you need more time to describe the problem you're dealing with. We tend to try to give the answer or give the solution at the first place, and this is natural. Is some kind of inertia, brain inertia. But when they start in a guided process first, and then at self-guided, self-steered process, and they understand the importance that a really good and profound and detailed description of the situation, the problem, what they are observing. This is a good point, and we have better results because at the end they build better models. They have better conversation between them about the problem. They understand better the problem, and most of the times they narrow the problem, because we usually are traveling at 130 miles per hour or kilometers per hour. So we don't see what is around the problem. And this is very important. And I think when I started to understand social cybernetics, and when I started to think, what are you observing? What is doing the observer of the problem? And this is a very important question. What are the conditions of the observer? The observer can observe alone, period, can observe alone field of territory or not. And those could be my answer to you, Goran. Thank you. Sorry, Roberto, I think you're mute.
Sorry. Any more questions? You can send a chat, or you can also speak up. We got 8 minutes left, so we're pretty comfy right now.
I have a question for Stefan, because I was interested in the project, but it will be good if you can give us the what are the motivators, or what the sponsor of the project.
Which one do you mean? Do you mean the whole presentation now, or do you mean this knowledge project that I mentioned?
Yes, the specific project on understanding the situation.
That's just what can I say? That's more like a personal interest. I'm involved at VTT. We have usually a large variety of different technology research and development projects that we are involved in, and I simply try to make sense of a couple of things from my systems theory background and my social cybernetics background. And well, yeah, this is largely it. Actually, there is no this is kind of like something that runs on parallel, you could say. And this other project that I mentioned, still this knowledge project, that's a European Commission project funded by Horizon, the Horizon 2020 program. And I'm the coordinator. So even though I'm not involved directly there in the actual technology development issues, but or actually I'm not myself even, I don't even have a research task in there. It's just a project management task. It still is something where I hope to get a lot of impressions and inputs to be able to theorize better what I have been presenting today. Yes.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome.
Is there anybody else?
I have a question for all of you. How was you feeling answering the questions? Was it a good exercise or not? Were you all okay? We have CHESLAT results, but we don't have the others.
Okay, good. For me, it was very inspiring. It's very helpful. Speaking quite exactly, it's helpful in my research on ignorance. Especially it's important in the studies of ignorance. That social, it shows that social constructivism is now so much distorting right now the reality. So it's fantastic. I will quote it, even I just make some references to this website.
Jaime.
No, I say okay only.
Okay. Something has happening to me because I try to answer the questions one and again and again and again, and sometimes I fail again. So, as Goran says at the chat, our biases are strong.
Yes. I think it revealed to me how biased sometimes we are, but also how confident we are in our biases. You know, we think we control the world, and that also connects to Czeslaw, because the idea of chaos also reflects on how people think. People are comfortable with control. Order in reality is a way is a security blanket. It's a way you feel safe. And we have some 3-4 minutes now, but I wanted to close on this to try to connect as much as possible. I think also Northrop, for instance, talks about complexity not as a measurable thing, but as a value, because there's been all these these ideas on trying to measure complexity, and they all have a valid point, but there's not a universal measure. So in this way, order and chaos are the same thing, because order and chaos are just different ways of seeing the same thing. What is orderly to somebody is chaotic to somebody else. I think I heard that one from Morticia Adams. And now, connecting to you, Stefan, how it's also interesting to see then if we rope artificial intelligence into this. Our artificial intelligence is having a lot of difficulties with abductive logic, and with seeing things outside rule application and how to derive rules from general cases. So how would AI understand these values, these ideas that there is no right or wrong question, like it's all a matter of perspective? That might complicate things, but maybe you could use AI to get like how can I say, like a perspective on a mechanistic perspective on how to go about things, and then act from there as a counterpoint. So
Yes.
these were 3 points.
Yes.
I enjoyed them very much. I think we're just running out of time because we have another conference in 2 minutes, and the Czeslaw and I have to speak on that one. So if there's not anything else, I think we can call this one. We can call it a day. I don't know, Stefan, I interrupted you if you have something to add.
No. I mean, I would have, that's exactly what I find as a challenge too. Basically bringing this together. What you just said.
I want to thank you, Czeslaw, Stefan, and you, Roberto, because we set up a good session, and I learned a lot. And I hope all the people here enjoyed. Raiha, Jaime, Saburo, Goran, Monica, Anna, Heloise, Justina, Marek, Patricia also. So please have a nice rest of the conference today.
Okay.
There will be another session. If we have time, we can continue, because I will have another paper there. Goodbye. Have a short break. Bye.